My mind is upset. I can change my mindset. Do not be thrown offset. RUMERTIME reset. RUMERTIME.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Access RUMERTIME podcast. My name is Vanessa Kelly Brew, and I am one of your hosts for this evening's podcast.
And my name is Pastor Georges Prosper, and I'm also one of your hosts, and I'm happy to be with you guys this evening.
Hi, my name is Dr. Yvonne Marie Laria, and I am one of your co-hosts for the Access RUMERTIME Conversations podcast.
Okay. Thank you all for joining us this evening. This evening, we have a very special podcast for you. We have the Jeremiah family that is joining us for this evening's podcast. The special thing about the Jeremiah family, other than the fact that they are a very musical family, is that they also have been impacted by the COVID-19 virus. And we would like to hear from them their personal experience throughout this whole COVID pandemic. So we would like to ask if you all would introduce yourselves to our audience this evening.
Okay, so hello, my name is Kendra Jeremiah. I am 15 years old. I'm a ninth grader at Niles High School, New Tech.
Hi, I'm Arlette Jeremiah, and I'm a nurse. Been a nurse 12, 13 years. I work in a long-term care facility.
Hello, my name is Kendall Jeremiah. I am a sophomore in college now because I just finished my first year. I am 19 and I am a musician.
And I am Elliot Jeremiah. I manage a career pathway program for the government. And we're so grateful to be here with you as the Jeremiah family to share our testimony today.
Thank you all for joining us. We are also grateful to have you all with us here this evening. And so why don't we just go on and jump right into it? So you all have been impacted by the COVID-19 virus. So who would like to tell us or tell the audience how you all have been impacted?
Yes, so Arlette, you were the patient.
Okay.
And if you could share with our listening audience your journey in terms of your thoughts and your emotions at the beginning, the middle, and the end. Because thank God that you made it through. Many people, as we know, about almost 90,000 people haven't made it.
May I ask a question, if you don't mind?
Absolutely.
Before, is there any way we could start from the nursing perspective? Because I think that's a valuable, to go from being a nurse to being a patient, I think is very unique. Is there any way we can start from your experience as a nurse?
Yes, I can. I'll tell you, nurses are terrible patients. You don't go to the doctor very often, you know. As a nurse, I remember when we first got our first confirmed COVID in the building, the patient was actually at Memorial Hospital, and a lot of fear. It traveled really fast throughout the whole building. There was a corona in the building. And once administrators knew, immediately all management came into the building, and they had emergency plans that they were going to kick into place as soon as we had a confirmed in the building. So prior to the confirmed in the building, we were already in quarantine and had been in quarantine for a couple of months. It was a gradual, but we were, no one could come into the building. We limited staff going out the building. No one could come and deliver food to the building if you ordered food out. They supplied meals. The first patient that was confirmed was not on my unit. I think it was a she, was on our memory care unit. But because memory care is already quarantined, it's just really weird. It'd just be strange. How come we got a COVID in the building and they're already quarantined? And then the building was quarantined on top of that a good 2 months before. So clearly.
Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
When you said 2 months before, 2 months before when? When did it start?
Before we had it confirmed.
Mm-hmm.
So was this in?
This is early April.
Oh.
This is early April. Yeah.
Okay.
We're at the end of April now, right? No, this is May.
No, this is May.
This is May. So I got that. My last day of work was the 18th of April, and we got it confirmed the week before. Yeah. So one of the things, and so once management came in and we quarantined, we put up signs. It did not go according to what they thought it would, their plans. So we were actually going to take in patients from the hospital that were COVID. We didn't think we had it in our building. But so, because we'd been quarantined for so long, so if it was there, it should be gone. Well, it was not. So the staff brought it in. You know, after 2 months of quarantine, it would be the staff that brought it in.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. So it was a big scramble. It was a big scramble because now whatever plans you had before for a COVID unit is now 2 units. And everything is affected. The way you do dietary, the way you do laundry, everything is affected. And so from day to day until we figured out a routine, it took a good week to figure out a routine. And one of the things that we were doing before was checking temperatures. So we were not only staff, but the patients. So we checked temperatures in the morning, every shift. We did a respiratory assessment every shift. And so we started noticing that some patients were having fevers. So normally a 99 is considered a low-grade fever. Well, a fever didn't count if it was 99 until it was 99.5, 0.5, sorry. And so some patients started having fevers, some started having coughs, which is not unusual. It can be here this morning and gone. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's COVID. But today, right now, you can't cough and somebody don't think you don't have COVID, you know. And then you can have a fever for different, like I had a couple of patients who just live on narcotics. Well, if you're on narcotics routinely, then you tend to have bowel issues. So you're gonna get constipated, and then because of their lack of mobility and just not eating well, your body will start to treat it like a fever. So you'll have a fever, and you know you're in a closed-in area, and people don't always cover their mouths, so you're coughing a lot. Off and on, you know, you have those issues. So you can't just say because someone has a fever, because someone has a cough, or just because someone is sneezing often. It could be allergies. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's COVID. But the patients in particular that we really zoned in on, that had respiratory issues, that had COPD, heart issues, lung issues, those we really focused on them, especially initially before we had the confirmed. So one of the things that I noticed with my patients, apart from running a fever, of course you're not eating because you don't feel well, you're really weak. We have this thing called, it's a Biox machine. It shows how oxygenated your blood is. And I have my own. And so if you're 90% or better, you're good. If you start to drop, then we get a little worried, but it's also based on how you look and how you present, because numbers don't say everything. So I had patients, one thing that was very common with my patients was they would Biox, say 95%, but it's so clear that they're laboring and they're breathing. So you don't look like that, and your breathing is slow and your nose flare, and then you're bioxing at 96%. That makes no sense. So I would never go with just numbers. Of course, I would do a full assessment. I would never just go by the number. You go by what you see. And a doctor with time, as they get to learn and trust a nurse's judgment, and then they take your word and run with it. And so diarrhea. I'm sorry. So one of the things that we were told that was really helpful that has shown helpfulness with COVID patients was zinc. Zinc, vitamin C, azithromycin, which is an antibiotic, also called Z-Pak. Those were given to the patients, but those things have side effects, and like zinc causes diarrhea. I mean, it was just bad. It was bad. So a lot of coughing, a lot of fevers, a lot of diarrhea, and which means a lot of charting. So one patient can, show symptoms this morning and not this afternoon, but you still have to do a full assessment on everyone, every shift. And it was a lot. It's very tiring.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. At what point now in this, having to reshuffle everything and, change how you guys operate on a day-to-day basis, at what point did you notice that you were getting sick?
I started noticing that, and I noticed this when I'm laying down and I'm resting. I noticed that when I'm laying and I'm resting, that whenever I inhaled and exhaled, I felt pain and tenderness, particularly in my back, which is where your lungs are. It's in the chest cavity, under the ribs. And so I noticed that. That was my first thing. And then other things that would, when you look back, would say, maybe you do have it, but I had been having those things off and on for years, which is, I usually have a little cough, and I'm tired. I work long hours. But what was unique about this situation was that once we got it confirmed in the building, staffing dropped big time. Oh, it was just ridiculous. By the time I left, I would say we were half capacity. And
in terms of staffing? In terms of
staffing, yes. And that hurt. Yes, sir.
When you say staffing drop, do you mean nurses quit or staff within the hospital?
Nurses, housekeeping, dietary, anybody that came into the building, that just pretty much went in half. It was very rough. And I, because I love what I do and I really care for my patients and I treat them like that's my grandmother or that's my grandfather. So I take this very personal if someone comes and don't do their job or you're supposed to work and you don't show up, you don't even call, So it really felt like it's a battlefield, So in terms of, am I going to go back to work? Oh yeah, my people need caring for. They gave a huge incentive to everyone. Everyone got a $15 raise and still didn't come to work.
Wow.
Still. And many still have not come back.
Right.
Because they're fearful.
Right.
You guys still hiring?
Yeah. Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
So Arlette, one of the questions that I have is, so you had mentioned that you noticed when you were lying down that you would feel like some pain in your back when you were breathing. So at what point did you find out that you had the COVID virus? So how did it go from you just noticing that you had, some difficulty breathing maybe you were already, feeling tired before. So how did it go from you, having the pain breathing to realizing that you had COVID?
So regarding our staffing issue, because it was so bad, and they did not expect that staff would just be so bad like this. And once they got one confirmed on the non-COVID unit and they confirmed on my unit, I normally have 21 patients, 18 of mine tested positive. So it was one nurse, one CNA to 18 patients, which they normally don't do that. And then when staffing went so badly, and there was just no one, and they did not have like a plan of action should staff not show up. So what I did was I said to my director of nursing, hey, I got you. I'm here. Okay, I will come every day. And I did. I worked 7 days straight. And most of these days were 12, 16-hour days. And the last day I worked, which was Saturday, I checked my temperature. I had a panic attack too in the workplace because everything is just not the way you're used to things flowing. And then you're wearing all this gear and you get so hot in there and you're going constantly and you still got a chart. Expectations are still there because you especially now with this COVID, and you got to have your documentation in order. And I'm someone, I like to be a person of my word. I don't want anybody to ever come to me and say, hey, you didn't do this, and you act so Christian, so and so and so, and you didn't do this, and nobody can come to me and tell me that. Right. So if I have to stay over and do it, I will do what I'm supposed to do. And if I don't, I communicate that. But that Saturday, that morning, I woke up again, still the coughing, the pain. And when I left, right before I left, I checked my temperature and it said 101.5. So I was running a fever, which technically, had I come to work that morning and I had gotten that temperature, they would have sent me home. Mm-hmm. So yes.
So now in that moment, Arlette, can you remember what your initial thoughts were? You saw you took your temperature and you saw it's 100.5? 101.5. Go back in your mind and tell me, what were you thinking right then?
I thought, oh my God, no. But I didn't think, okay. Hold on, because I care about my patients. And if it could be, it doesn't mean it's respiratory, okay? Because it wasn't, I think mentally because I did not accept it, it did not manifest itself fully. But it was giving me hints. And so Sunday morning, I went to bed with my patients on my mind. Our administrator, our director of nursing, they didn't abandon us. They did not say, hey, I'm going to do strictly administrative and you just do the nursing. They did not. They were there. They were there working long hours. And so I go to bed thinking about my patients, thinking about the staffing, mentally mapping what I'm going to do and in what order the next day. And so with that, I woke up an hour early before my alarm, and all I accomplished was putting on my socks between the hour of 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock. So I was that weak.
Wow.
And that's when I decided I can't go no further.
You couldn't go any further.
Yeah.
Okay, so you tested 101.5. You said, oh my goodness, that was your thought. It's like, I can't believe I have it. Would that be correct? I can't believe this is what is about to happen to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let me ask.
Well, at that point, you weren't really sure you had it, but maybe it was just a thought that you possibly may have had it.
Well, I knew I was exposed to it because
Okay.
we tested our patients, and it takes a couple of days before you get results back. And so 3 of the earlier patients that got tested, I personally, they're diabetics. And so when I have a diabetic and they're poor eaters, and working the long hours like I do, I see their blood sugars at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So I make sure that I'm the one that personally feeds them to make sure they maintain through the night. And so those particular patients had coughed and sneezed on me and were confirmed.
Right.
So it was just a matter of time.
Okay.
Yeah. And
So
it
let me
has
ask.
to come to it.
Right. Let me ask a question. I want to bring in the rest of the family. Kendra, Elliot, and KJ. Mom had 101.5. The next morning she wakes up, she's weak. What is going through you guys' minds?
The kids, they didn't know at the time when she woke up what was going on.
Because I woke you up.
Because it's just her and I in the room. And, prior to that, obviously, her working with COVID patients, we had things in place, knowing this possibility. So we're constantly monitoring her, just monitoring her, period. And just making sure that things were, that she wasn't overdoing. And if you know my wife, you can hear, she's pretty much going to go regardless.
Right.
When she woke up that morning, I just knew she wouldn't make it. So we talked about, hey, you have to call in. We're not going in.
And you'd been telling me to not.
Yeah, I was telling her before, but this was it. There's no way in the world you go into work when you can't barely stand up.
You had to put your foot down, Elliot.
Pretty much that morning.
Yeah.
And it was now going through the protocol of calling in, and it was an emotional morning for her as she was, crying and calling because she knew how short-staffed they were. So as they were calling in, and the overnight staff, which was there already so long, had to stay a little bit longer, and so forth. And this is how you guys know the immune system breaks down when you're dealing with the COVID patient, and that was my concern from day one of just those long hours. You're making yourself susceptible for this.
Right.
So she knew my concern from day one when I asked, "What's the plan?" Because you're one of the nurses that are going to be working with COVID patients. So what's the plan that your facility have set up so that you are protected while you're trying to protect
others?
So now that I'm seeing that we're going through that, it was just more of, okay, you're not going in. Let's figure out now, get you through this morning in terms of calling the folks, and then go through the protocols of calling who we need to call to get you tested. And that's pretty much what it was.
Yeah. So you went into your frontal lobe brain cognitive. You went into drive. You went into activating the plan.
Exactly.
Right. And Arlette, you went into an emotional space.
Yes. My director of nursing, she was there every day. And when I called off, before I had left that Saturday evening, before I had left that Saturday evening, I heard staff that were already there saying they were not coming back. They were talking about it. And so I was concerned about that in terms of patient care. And sure enough, they did not come in that night. And so my director of nursing, she was there from like 8 o'clock in the morning. And when I called her at 5 o'clock in the morning, she had just gotten home about an hour before. So that's really hard for me. Because I knew, and she leaned on me. I'll tell you, she leaned on me for leadership with the staff that was there, and leaned on me to convince others to please come to work.
So if you were to describe, if you were to list a few of the emotions that you felt, that you went through, because clearly there were multiple emotions kind of just like washing over you.
Mhm.
Some of the ones I hear is you felt some disappointment that you couldn't be there for your facility person. What else did you, what are some other emotions that you had, Arlette?
In that morning, are you referring to?
Right, that morning. Yeah.
Fear. Oh
Yeah.
my word, fear.
Mhm.
That morning I accepted that I probably had it. And
Mhm.
once I did that, everything else just hit me full force. Everything. I was very grateful to go to sleep and get rest. So I'm
Mhm.
exhausted. I'm
Yeah.
exhausted.
Because you worked 16 hours, 7 days straight.
Yeah.
So grateful.
I was not worried about me though.
Mhm.
I really wasn't.
Mhm.
I mean, I might die, sure, yeah. And that fear was there, but it was not the most.
That was not the most
Prominent.
dominant. That was not the most
Prominent.
dominant.
Yeah.
What was the most dominant emotion or feeling?
Probably, besides the fear, the anxiety, yeah, also just I think the love that she has for her patients, and those that are in the trenches with her, the commitment level that she saw, and knowing that that emotion of that she's letting them down.
Letting down, okay.
Let them down. Those were evoked in her that morning. So the plan and what we were trying to do is just at least allow her mind to rest and not worry about it.
The patience.
She was doing a lot of worrying. It was more like, now it's time to take care of you, because you can't take care of them in this state. So all the fear, all the anxiety that was built up, go to rest, and it will take care of itself. And this is where your faith have to kick in, that things will fall into place. Now you got to take care of yourself. So that's that morning itself, prior to the kids waking up, those were the things we were going through.
Yeah.
Initially at my job, they were going to take in COVID patients. Like I said, they never thought that they would have COVID within. So that plan just got thrown out the window. I know my job had said, in the media, they say separate social distance from everyone. And you see like news people, newscasters separate themselves from their family. So we talked about, my job offered to put us in a hotel if we chose to do that. And my husband and I, Elliot, we talked about it, and we decided that we would not. But I had a fear for my kids. And as you were talking, Yvonne, it just brought that fear right back to me. My kids, you know the troubles we had to have children, and they're a gift from God. So when I was pregnant with them, I took medication so that I can keep them. But one of the things that did was it affected their respiratory. And as they were growing up, if they had a cold, it was very easy for it to progress from just a regular cold to bronchitis. It never got as far as pneumonia, because we would take them to the doctor. But whenever they had a cold, the first thing you do is, you want to squash the symptoms of coughing, sneezing, so you don't spread it to the rest of the family. But after a while, you notice that this medication isn't working. But by then, it's progressed to bronchitis. So 20 years later, 18, 19 years later, now we have COVID, and it affects the respiratory, it affects the kidney. And so when it came to making a decision about whether to stay in a hotel away from the family or staying with the family, you know, that was something that came into my mind. And then I never thought I would get it, but then I got it. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I don't want to pass this to my children. And this is a conversation Elliot and I had, and I recorded it in the video that I did for Mario. I was very tired and breathing hurt, and I was exhausted. But one night, right just as I was falling asleep with just the last breath that I had before I finally fell asleep, I said to him, I don't want you to catch corona, because I couldn't take care of myself. I said, I don't want you to catch corona. And I thought, I don't want to kill my kids. You know, the gift that God gave me, I'm going to, you know, hurt them by giving them corona. And that's when he said to me, I'm not going to leave your side. We're going to go get through this together. And this, so we're having this conversation. I'm barely keeping my eyes open, and I'm falling asleep. And as I fell asleep, you know, your mind starts to drift, and you think about stuff. And I remember thinking, wow, that sounds like my marriage vows. You know, for better, for worse, till death do we part. You know, if it comes to that point. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing. Yeah. Elliot, did you have any emotions? And I know Vanessa is gonna end this segment. Before we go to the next segment, Elliot, what emotions? You went into overdrive in your brain, right? You went into cognition, action, but you have to also have had emotions. What emotions did you have?
And I'm glad I have the kids jump in here and share theirs as well. But for me, I compartmentalize, and I'm always, it seemed like I live there because I manage. So I'm always in that space, and we had things in plan. So it wasn't, I'm never fearful. I really don't. I live a little different. I'm built a little different from others, because I have to. I truly. This is where my faith gets activated. So I wasn't fearful of what will happen to her. It was more of. It was more of. My love and my thoughts of her. How the ways can I help bring down her angst, if that makes sense. Reduce her angst. So that's where I was in terms of trying to navigate my mind of how can I do that, and also not heighten any fear with the kids. So I knew I had to be strong mentally and physically. So it was more of just I literally going into activation mode of, okay, we had things in plan. This is where my faith is going to have to come through, Lord. I cannot worry about these things. And I just truly believe. I talked to one of my family member who went my college roommate, which is a federal agent. He talked real quick about, quick story. He talked about, because they have to look at live scenes of people getting hurt. And he talked about someone getting shot in the head and living. They end up still living, and someone gets shot in the arm. And because of fear, it was a police officer got shot in the arm. She freaked out, and she ended up passing away. The person that got shot in the head refused to give up, and they lived. So it was that type of activation mode that I go into, that I refuse to allow that. And that she said it in terms of once she kind of just accepted everything hit, because she was in that mode. Well, I stayed in that mode because I couldn't allow anything to permeate the household and the family. So that I had to make sure that I stayed in that mode. So no fear, no anxiety, none of those things. If I don't show those things and if I don't feel those things, we talk about faith in this house quite a bit. Just making sure they can see those faith through me, and I'm preaching those things that can encourage her and that can strengthen her, and that was important for the way and the direction that I went during that time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. You had emotions, because you talked about, you felt love, so that's compassion. You felt empathy. You felt a sense of wanting to protect your family, not just their physical wellness, but also their spiritual and their emotional. And so that takes a certain level of emotion, and also managing that emotion, not allowing the emotion to manage you. And so it's not that you don't feel, you feel it, but you are managing it and making sure that it is not managing you.
Correct.
So Vanessa, we will come back to the kids. Vanessa, take us out.
Yes, there you go. We're going to take a break. And and like Yvonne said, when we come back, we'd like to hear from Kendra and KJ, the emotions that you felt after learning about your mom having this COVID disease.
Are you and your family seeking healthy mindsets, actions, relationships, knowledge, emotions, resources, and skills? Well, backed by popular demand, GC Squad presents RUMERTIME Family Summer Camp, a social emotional wellness program starting June the 14th to the 26th at the venue St. Michael and All Angels Episcopal Church, down to the roots.
The Access RUMERTIME Conversations podcast is brought to you by GC Squad and the Leadership Institute, and your co-host, Dr. Yvonne Murray-Larrier, Dr. Geneva Fleming, Vanessa Kelly-Brew, Lynn Prosper, and Georges Prosper. Thank you for listening. Welcome back to the Access RUMERTIME Conversations podcast.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining us again for this Access RUMERTIME Conversations podcast. In the last section, Arlette was letting us know what her journey was like after finding out that she had COVID-19 as a nurse, as a helper, and then ending up being the one who then needed help. So she talked to us a little bit about what that was like for her. And then Elliot also shared his thoughts and his feelings of what it was like and trying to care for his wife and protect his family and trying to be strong for them, to hold his family together. And so what I would like to know, Arlette, is if you could tell us more about what that was like for you, just as a mom and as a wife, to learn that you had COVID.
I was not afraid about COVID at all. I was not afraid. And even after I've recovered, I've jumped right back in, Yvonne. I did not take your advice and rest. I went to work Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. But I'll tell you. Yes, ma'am.
Oh my goodness.
So I'll tell you something. I get dreams from the Lord, and I always come away with an impression about a dream. And the funny thing about the dreams that I have is that it's just a scene. in my mind, and it's not very often that I wake up and I remember my dream. And I know from studies that if you wake up in a REM sleep, you remember the dream. But there are dreams that just really stand out in my mind, and I always come back with an impression, and I usually share it with my husband. But it's usually just a scene, and I've learned over the years that it's actually a scene that's in the future. And I don't know until I come up to that moment that that is what the dream is about. And so one day I was telling my mom just last summer about it, and she said, you should ask the Lord why. Because I just thought, God is telling me, hey, I'm in your future, trust me in your present, and I've been in your past. And I've grown up with a praying mother and grandmother. And I hope to be that for my children. So I had a dream regarding the corona, and the scene was just, actually it was a moving scene this time. I was riding in the vehicle with my husband and Mario Ferguson. And yeah, it was a moving scene. So we're driving down a road off of Old 31, coming on Old 31. And I remember saying in the dream, hey, I haven't been on this road before. And Mario said, yes, but I know it's where it's going to end up. So I woke up from the dream, and what I took away from that was things are going to go back to where it used to be. It's going to be okay. It's going to go back to where it used to be. So I did not know. Vision is 2020, or 2020 is vision, whatever that little thing goes. And that was encouraging to me. And so I was even bolder verbally, especially in the workplace, about we're going to get through this. When I got to work in the mornings, once we got Corona in the building, they started sectioning off. So my section was locked off from the rest of the building, and our memory care, because it started on memory care. And I would come to work. I had one CNA and myself, and I'd say, come on, let's pray. Come on, God, we're going to get through this, God. And I'm very verbal about giving God praise for everything as I remember to. So, you got a chain check? Praise the Lord. Amen. In the shower? Ooh, glory to God. They let you take a shower? Amen. That's just the way I am.
Right.
But it's one thing to talk, and it's another thing to live it, all the time. So unless it's really who you are, then they're just looking at you as like, yeah, whatever, lady.
Right.
But I didn't, that dream, I didn't realize until afterwards that I really was going down a road I'd never been down before.
Right.
And it came to a place where it ended. In other words, there was an end to this. And it's one thing to give God praise when things are okay, and it's a whole other thing to do it when you. It's like a Job experience, in
the midst of the storm.
Yeah, in the midst of the storm. Yeah, but I held on to my faith. There was a time when you do get shaken. You do start to wonder, am I really going to make it? But God is more than good, and He is so personal. It just amazes me every time. Every time.
Wow.
Oh. Kendra and KJ, can you share your feelings about how you felt when you found out that your mom had COVID?
So when I found out that my mom had COVID-19, it didn't hit me, really. My parents set such a strong foundation of, Christianity and having faith and stuff like that, like my dad was talking about. So I automatically thought, my mom's gonna get through this, like, of course, but I was expecting to tear up, but
it's okay. This is why this is so important.
Mhm.
This is why this is so important.
And young lady, how old are you right now?
She didn't expect to tear up like this, because it's trauma, guys. It's trauma.
Yeah.
So
And
take your time.
To hear your experience at 15 means a lot, because there are people out there within your age group, you and your brother's age group, who are not taking this seriously. And so it's important for us to be able to put the voices out there to know, if it does come to your home, this is how you can expect to react. Are you gonna react on the perspective of faith, or are you not gonna have a plan and just let it come into your home and let it ravage your house? And I'm glad that your parents set a plan together to make sure that, if anything comes into this house, we will attack it with the Lord in front of us.
That spiritual foundation. Yeah.
Continue, if you don't.
Oh, she wasn't finished.
Oh, go ahead, sis.
So I was saying I received an email from my teacher, and it was about some schoolwork. I'm pretty sure, I can't remember. So I responded back to her, and then she had asked, how's everything going? And so I had never really, said it out loud or anything. I shared it with my friends close friends, but I never really expressed how I was feeling and the stuff that was going inside the house. And so I explained to her that my mom had COVID-19, and I was on the phone with my friend, and I was like, this is a real thing. My mom could actually pass from this. I expected her to get through it, but it wasn't it was possible. So I still talk to her, during my mom's for the past 2 weeks with my teacher, and sharing her the things that was going on in my mom's progress. And I thanked her once. She was one of the first people I told that my mom had got her second negative test, and I thanked her for reaching out and kind of bringing me to that, making me realize, because I never shared it with anybody, really.
Kendra, thank you so much for taking that emotional risk and being vulnerable, because you know what? We hear you, and I know all of us on this, George's, Vanessa, and myself, we are therapists, and so we hear the pain, we hear the fear, we hear the relief that your mom is better now. But I'm grateful that you had someone to talk to in the process. You had your teacher who was, checking in on you, and your friends who you felt could support you during this time. And by you sharing your heart, you will help hundreds of thousands of people, young people your age, who are not able to put language or words to what they are feeling. And you have done more than you can even imagine to help people through this crisis. Because one of the things that people are struggling with the most, especially younger people like your age, is that isolation, not having the language, feeling overwhelmed and confused, and not feeling like they know how to express it or who to express it to.
Thank you, Yvonne.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. KJ.
Okay, so for me, I wasn't as worried just because I knew what the situation was. Like, as soon as COVID like hit, jobs were closing down. My dad, like, everything's shutting down. That just meant that we're gonna be quarantined at home. And the best thing, I'm an introvert, so I kind of enjoyed that chance of just getting more time to do stuff, not having to go out and do a whole bunch of things, less driving to do and stuff like that. But I knew at the same time, my mom was going to be going to work still. And even while quarantine was going and before she got sick, we didn't see her a lot because she's gone before we woke up, and she was back. When she got back, she generally went right to bed, or so to speak, I would say, because she goes to bed at like 8 o'clock. Yeah, sometimes it was earlier.
No, if I work, because I would get home about 10:30, 11 o'clock.
Okay, yeah,
I always stopped and checked on him. You doing okay? And I heard he took a shower and went to bed.
Mm-hmm. So she'd go early, and even for me, before quarantine hit, I should say, I wasn't seeing them a lot because I would go to school, and then I would come from school to pick up Kendra, drop her off, and then go to work, and that won't get back to like 8 o'clock. And then from that time, we have like an hour or so to exercise, and then worship, and then do whatever and go to bed. So during quarantine, it was just like, okay, if mom got sick, just do what we've been doing. Just trust that things will work itself out. Because, like, sure, you don't want to give into the fear of, like, what if? What if anything happened? So I'm like, okay, what if is there? But I don't care about what if. Just right now, just focus on what's happening right now, and like focus on the positive.
Mm-hmm.
And during this time, I mean, like, I don't text a lot of people. Like, yeah, I don't. But like, I have close friends like that are like close to me. So I text them sometimes if I felt like it, and I took this time to kind of spend more time with my sister just because it's like this is the only two people that I can really hang out with, me, myself, and Kendra. And I don't mind, but just like to have someone else to hang out with. Luckily, that I have a sibling, just to do that, to spend more time with her. So we'd exercise, and if it was warm outside, we'd go into our backyard. And thankfully, we have a big enough yard where we can toss the frisbee on warm days or windy days. Still, just a chance to get some fresh air, to kind of enjoy just life itself, not focus on the heavy things. And we just play music and just kind of have fun, maybe a half an hour or so outside in the backyard, and then just exercise together. We've been doing weightlifting and stuff like that. And just when my mom got sick, like, didn't tell us right away, but my mom, she'd already, before she got it confirmed, was like, okay, mom's probably got it. In my head, I was like, okay, mom's probably got it. She was feeling sick. And then when it happened, that was like, dad got, or mom, that was like, or was it you that told me? Because I know, like, me and Kendra, I got out of my room, and dad was like, and Kendra was like, mom has COVID. And I was like, okay. Because I was already mentally prepared for it once I saw her got sick. I'm like, okay, this happens, just keep it going. We're cleaning in the morning when we wake up, and every evening before we go to bed, before we close the night. So just cleaning, and then go to take classes, and then from that, just, take just kind of doing things. And the main thing that I was like, my emotions weren't wavered, but I just reached out to people because I was like, okay, other people, because even though my mom had it, there's other people who, there's other people who still have it, or like might not be as mentally strong as I am or like who might not have someone to talk to during this thing. And so I would reach out to my friends, even if like all my art school friends or some family that I don't talk to that often, to see how they were doing, just to check in. And like, I don't want to say, oh, my mom has COVID, and then people feel bad for me. I'll just saying, hey, how are you doing, and stuff like that. But
so go ahead.
What were you going to say?
So you stayed, one of the ways that you interacted when you found out that your mom was positive was to stay connected to, or get even more connected to people you love. Kendra, your friends, you started doing more, almost like more service right? You reached out, you know, to help other people because you had a privilege of having people in your space who were supportive, who gave you a strong spiritual foundation. You had a sister, you had your dad there. So you felt, I would say, you felt full enough, you felt supported enough so that you could now share that type of support with others who you felt didn't have that kind of support. Is that correct?
Yes. Because generally, it's like, as you know, I have a studio in my room, and I could spend hours, even at night after worship. I'm probably up to like 1 or 2 working on music. So I can, like, if I had the choice, I would stay in my room and to myself. But just feel like during this time, because we're not going anywhere. We weren't going anywhere from March because we thought it was going to be at the end of March, not still in COVID. So it's like anytime but now you don't want to come out of COVID and reflect on what you could have done and what you didn't do.
Right. Right. Good.
I have a question. I know within African American community right now, positive tests within our community has risen. Within your region where you're at right now, how is the African American slash Latino community or minority community handling this COVID? Are they taking it seriously? Or are they more lackadaisical? Like, how is it within your region?
That's a good question. To be honest, because we're really not out, and of course the news really don't give you depict the correct, the accurate news of how the is affecting our people or the minorities. For those that we know, they're taking it seriously, for sure. I work with a lot of young people. So just getting feedback from them and their families, it's 50. It's what I would say it's kind of like 50-50.
50-50.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people they unless it hits home, it doesn't register. There are a handful of us that doesn't really need to hit home for us to understand the gravity of this thing.
Yeah.
But for others, we've seen it unless it hit home, it still doesn't register to them. So to answer your question, you know, I'm not seeing. I'm not getting a good feel of how our community here in South Bend, in terms at least the minorities, are responding to it. Be honest, we've been locked. Once we got locked away here, I tried to change the scenery. I really, really rarely looked at the news, so I try to keep everything positive. We did a lot of things just to make sure that our spirits, besides of doing the things to keep us physically fit, the mental part was important. So my focus was in making sure we do things that will allow us to stay to stay positive, and more importantly, that is a key part for her getting back to full health. I wanted her to make sure that she was in a positive mind state, and that everything around her was positive and encouraging, so that her recovery will be that much quicker.
Good.
We also
I asked that question specifically because I wanted to kind of see how individuals that you guys were around were taking it, because I go out within the community because I also live in South Bend, and we do testing within different areas of South Bend, within Elkhart, Napanee, Millersburg area, and we're asking people to come get tested, and sometimes it can be challenging. When we first started, testing were very high, and then we've slowly watched it decrease little by little. And I'm trying to make sure that people out there within the community understand how important it is to take this virus seriously. Because if we don't, Just like the statistics that go out there within the major cities, that too can be us. That we don't see it that many people who test positive, and then we see a rapid influx of individuals flocking to the hospital trying to look for assistance because now they don't know what to do. So I thank you so much for your answer, because I think it's good for us to start to understand that even though this thing might not hit our home right now, if it ever does, we have to make sure that we're prepared, know where to go get testing, know what the signs and symptoms are, so then what could come off as one issue doesn't translate into more, and then you go to the hospital, but then you're close to the end of your demise. And I'm hoping that people would take it seriously, and even if you're feeling one symptom, because I know before we were looking for several different symptoms before you can get tested. Now we've literally lowered down to if you have one symptom, come get tested. Or if you are around somebody who had COVID, come get tested, because we want to make sure that everyone who is able to gets tested so we can see the actual pulse of our community.
That's wonderful. I was going to say, since once I got confirmed, this family was under serious lockdown. So we had a lot of church family that cooked meals for us. We didn't go out. And even when I was here in the house, and even though my husband had to skip social distance to care for me, I wore a mask at all times, even in my sleep, because I was so afraid of giving it to him. If my children came into my room, they had limited exposure. If they came into my room, they had to wear a mask, and then in and out. We're not hanging around and like, hi, mommy, how you doing? Back out, So in terms of being outside and seeing how our community, we couldn't tell you. I will say that now that I'm back at work and I've been to the store once or twice, I don't see a lot of Black people masking up, and it scares me.
Mm-hmm.
I do see a lot of masks, but man, the African community, they either don't know or they don't want to know, or they don't care. That's what it looks like.
I think it's that thing of when it comes to you, then you'll take it seriously. Because I know within the Hispanic community, an individual passed away, and then we saw a great number of individuals who just went by the place where the lady used to work at, and all of them started to come to get tested at the same time, because they were like, oh, a couple of months ago I ran into her and she passed away not too long ago, so I want to make sure I don't have it. A couple of weeks ago this happened. So then now when it comes close to home, then you want to take it seriously. Mm-hmm. And that's why I thank you for saying that, because now it's not just those who work in the hospitals or those who've had it. No, everyone in the community needs to be masked up, and they need to make sure that they follow all the guidelines that are put out there, because we want to make sure that it does not follow you home. It does not come into your household, because we want you to be safe at all costs. Right. Because I don't know how it will attack your body. And I would hate for someone to figure out that they have health complications when it's inside of them.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Vanessa? I want to ask this question. What do you guys think? Because I have seen, as I go out, to the grocery store sometimes, and not often, I see almost a 50-50. I see people in the other communities, some people not wearing masks, and I also see some Black people wearing masks and some not. Some following social distancing and some not. And like you said, it scares me, because I'm wondering, is it what could be some of the reasons that people in our community, in the African American or the Black community, what could be some of those reasons you think might be at play that's causing them to not wear masks? What do you guys think? I know in Florida a month or two ago, a doctor got arrested because he had a mask and he was helping the homeless. He was going to get homeless people tested, and he was standing in front of his house with a van, loading his van, and he got arrested. And it's only when his wife came out and said, what are you doing? And showed the man the police's ID. So I know there's some Black people who believe and who've experienced it, the issue of being arrested because wearing a mask. What do you think are some other factors, some other factors why maybe all people in the African American community are not wearing masks?
Well, I will say that is a whole different level. And you are absolutely right, because, Black people are racially profiled already. And when you add to that, now that they are wearing masks, that is a whole level, a whole different level of, wanting to be safe, wanting to protect myself. I don't want to wear a mask because then if I'm already being, having eyes on me, if I wear a mask, then what are the chances that I will get stopped even more? I saw, a video where even a young man was in a store, had gone to a store, and he was being asked to leave. Because he had a mask on. And he was being asked to leave by a security guard, because he was wearing a mask. Now, this is something that the government has said that you need to do, right, to try to protect yourself. And he was being escorted out of the store for doing that, right? Yeah.
So there's that fear of being, again, additionally criminalized.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you think, what are some other reasons, do you think?
Well, I will say, too, one of the other reasons that I do believe is I have heard people say that because they also have a faith and a belief that they will be okay. I'm not going to let the fear overtake me, so I'm not going to get caught up in this. So, if I am walking around with the mask, then I am playing into this whole fear, that, something is going to happen to me. So, I do think that some people are not wearing masks because they are like, well, look, I'm not getting caught up in all of that fear of the what if, So I do believe that is one reason why people are not wearing masks.
So that is a misapplied exercise of faith. Right. Because there's a difference between having fear and letting it override you. But there's another about being sensible and also thinking about the other, about the social other, right? It's important. The Bible says you need to be your brother's keeper, right?
Right.
And if this is what is going to help a brother or a sister or somebody not contract the disease and save a life, and you are applying this idea of faith and saying, I'm not going to wear a mask because if I wear a mask, it suggests that I don't have faith. Then that's a misapplication of what I believe the Bible is talking about. Elliot and the Jeremiah family, what else do you guys want to say about that?
I think those are great points. Those are excellent. Going back to your initial, the first point in regards to masks, because that was one of the first things that I thought of when I was wearing them early. Obviously, my wife had a bunch of masks she brought home when this hit, and we were one of the first ones that were wearing it in the stores before it was even mandated. But as I was walking through those, as a black man, those are the things that you think of before anyone else thinks. And I know that was in my mind for sure. As you know what, now it's interesting, and I wore that particular mask for a while. I ordered other masks afterwards, but I was leery in terms of the mask that covers, how it looks. The optics is so important. So having that particular mask from her facility, it portrayed a less fearful look just optically. So it was important for me to wear those as I went out. So I could relate to what you said earlier, because that was definitely on my mind. I agree in terms of the faith, as you mentioned. Some things I've heard that from folks. Other things is just ignorance, just not understanding or you choose not to get the information needed for you to prepare yourselves to keep safe. Just in case in point. In Michigan, we heard on the news of even our own that ended up the lady went into the Family Dollar, and with her daughter, the security guard asked her to put on a mask. She went home, husband came in the sun, and ended up shooting the security guard. And so just those types of ignorant things, and just you not choosing to understand the importance of what's being asked of you in terms of safety measures, not only regardless of yourself, but for others. So that type of ignorance, sometimes that's part of everything that we just said. So it's a little of everything, and so I've seen that as well. And I've heard that as well in terms of people choosing to go that route. So it's unfortunate. It's not one particular thing, but it's several things within our community.
I definitely agree that it is a combination of different things. Fortunately for me, I don't know if it's just the people that I've encountered or people that I'm close to. I've noticed that it's actually more of our people wearing masks, more fearful and like germaphobes, wearing gloves everywhere they go and sanitizing the doors before they go out. That's what I've seen. In terms of a combination, I think there's also the factor of out of sight, out of mind, where I'll go back to testing. I got tested for COVID. My job was doing mandatory testing, and I told some very close friends, and they told me, well, I'm not going to get tested. I'm going to wait for your results.
Oh, my word.
And I said, well, those are my individual results. You don't know where else. I go to the grocery store. You don't know where I could have gotten it from. Well, I hung out with you. I came by this date. So if you got it, then I know that I'll have it, and then I'll go get tested. But if you end up negative, then I don't have to go get tested at all. So it's that out of sight, out of mind. If I'm not going to worry about it until it hits home type thing. So even if, I'm going to wear my mask, I'm going to clean up my house. So within my vicinity, I'm okay. I'm not going to worry about it until it's within my space. So I definitely agree that it's a factor of many things.
Do you guys also think it has something to do with income level and poverty level, people not being able to afford masks or maybe not having access to it?
Oh, yes, definitely. Definitely. And that goes into the lack of resources, lack of information. I know people, sometimes you ask yourself, oh, can I afford to go buy these masks? What type of mask am I supposed to get? You know, or you're asking there's so many advertisements. If you go on Facebook, I call them scams sometimes because there's just so many advertisements for different types of masks, and it's all in your face, and you don't know. Some people don't know what to pick.
Yeah. Or even it's gonna work. Is it gonna be something that's gonna be effective for you?
Exactly.
Is it gonna be safe, or is it just gonna make you look safe?
Yeah.
And another factor that I've also heard from someone is, so even if I go get tested and I do end up getting COVID, what next? What happens? There's no cure. What do I do with this information? I don't have money to go to the hospital. I don't have health insurance. What do I do with this? Where do I go from here?
Right. And that is actually, Lynn, that's a great point. And I do want to know that from Arlette, because you have walked this journey. So after you found out, what happened after that? I mean, was it just a period of writing it out for however long it took, and how long did it take? Because we heard you say that you are back at work now. So, yeah.
The medical director at my job, he followed me, as well as the health department doctor. So my medical director, he checked on me daily. He was the one that ordered azithromycin and Zofran because I had terrible nausea, and I think zinc for me. So he did more care for me, and I'm not his patient, than the health department doctor did. So I saw the health department doctor 1 week after I had been diagnosed, and I was starting to get well by then, but I was definitely not 100%. Go ahead, babe.
So that Sunday, as she mentioned, she didn't go to work. Once she connected with her medical facility doctor, we got the numbers of what we needed to do in terms of who we needed to call, the county, to set up the test. So we set up the test for the very next day, Monday morning.
Was it Monday?
Yeah. Okay. So we went in there Monday to take the test, and Wednesday it's 2 to 3 days for the results. So by Wednesday, we were able to get confirmation on the Wednesday that she was tested positive. And from that, once she was tested positive, then she had to set up an appointment with a county physician. So that the health department physician, so that which is virtual visit, so that we can go through the protocols of what needs to take place within the home. Well, they started telling us what needs to take place, and we had most of that already in place already. And then just started to monitor her symptoms based on how many more visits, when she needs to go a follow-up test based on how she was recovering. So it went from there, and a week and change went by till she was she started to feel better. And then we were able to go and get a follow-up test. We needed two negative test results. So we went the following, we went that Friday, or was it Wednesday? One of the two.
Probably Wednesday.
I think I want to say the Wednesday. They were supposed to get back to us by the Friday. We didn't. She missed a call. They called her Saturday morning. We're in the middle of church service. Sorry, we live right by the main road. So church service. So we missed that call after church service. She tried to call back, but you can't get through. They have to call. We tried again Sunday. Couldn't get through, obviously. We wait for them to call back Sunday. They didn't call back. So I told her Monday, we're not waiting for them to call. We were going to call because Monday morning they still didn't call. So we called in, and they're obviously it's the weekday. So they answered, gave us the results. So the first one was negative, which was great. We had to go, once we get that result within 24 hours, you got to get another one. So we went very much, since we 2 days of lapse when she should have had the results given to us. We just went that same afternoon, evening actually, to work, because I work from home. We drove there and we got the second test. And I want to say Thursday or Friday, they gave us, I think it was Thursday, they called and gave us the second negative. Mm-hmm. So that was the process from her getting, for us calling from the Sunday, the following Monday, the next day, which is Monday, her going to get the test, the Wednesday finding out it was positive, going through the process of recovering, and then a week and a half later, getting those other two tests taking and getting the results. So I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, definitely. So, okay, Vanessa, what did you want to?
Well, we're getting late in this podcast, but one of the questions that I would like to ask Arlette, you know, I heard you say that you are one who has been gifted with having dreams, being able to, you know, have experiences through your dreams. And so the question that I have for you, like, if you are one who believes that every experience that we have, or, you know, is there a reason or a purpose for every experience that we have? And if so, why do you think that you specifically experienced this COVID-19 and your family? Because you, earlier in this podcast, you said you had a dream and you saw that you were on this road, but you knew that it was going to be okay. And so why do you think, you know, and here it is, you have come through this. So why do you think that, I don't know if chosen is the right word, but, you know, you experienced this, you and your family experienced this?
That's a really good question. You guys are making me think. I don't know why God allowed it to happen. Nothing happens without his consent, you know. If someone can be blessed by it, so be it. I want to live a life that's pleasing to God, not just in action, but in thoughts too, you know. I don't know why.
If I may, you know, it's one of the things that always preach here for our family, and truly believes that God doesn't give you anything that you cannot bear. He's not going to give you a way out or be able to help you work your way through. At the same time, we believe that through every experience, there's something that's birthed out of it. All right, there's something that's birthed out of it, and him allowing us to go through this. We and that's one of the reasons where, besides the fact that Yvonne is like a sister to us, us coming on her podcast, but the fact of the opportunity, we feel it's a responsibility, because he allowing us to come through. It is not for us to just sit and not share. There's something that's birthed out of our experience that's to be shared, and he didn't allow us to go through it without us doing our due diligence and being responsible by sharing or not sharing. So with that being said, that's how we feel. We feel like, hey, listen, Lord, you've blessed us immensely. You allowed us to navigate through this, and there's a reason why. So now it's birth. is a testimony's birth, and it should be now. Hopefully, it inspires, it encourages, and it uplifts someone else's life.
I'd like to add to it because you caught me off guard, and I think I know why. I personally, I have a control issue. In the workplace, I don't think anybody can take care of my patients like I can take care of my patients. Nobody can love on them like I love on them. Nobody's going to chart on like, nobody's going to communicate with family like I communicate with them. Nursing is a very stressful field. And I worry about my patients when I'm not there. And so I take on more than I should because I care. And when they see that, like the supervisors see that, they put more on you because they know you care and they know that they can rely on you. And for a long time, God's been saying, you can't handle that. That is way too much, you know. Mentally, emotionally, physically, it was too much, and it's been too much for years. I knew I was pushing the issue. I was pushing it for a long time, and I was going literally by strength. And, you know, the Sabbath is a day of rest. And you are only supposed to work 6 days a week. And you need a physical rest. You need a mental rest. And you know what? I worked exactly 7 days and I crashed. But it had been coming, and the Lord had been telling me, okay. All right, so now lay down. And that's what I had to do. And let him handle it, because there were times when I lamented, Lord, this is too much, you know, and this person's doing this, and this person, and so, and these are lies, these are your children, help me, Jesus, you know. And he's saying, well, you know what, if I take your hands off of it, then I can work on it, then I can fix it, you know. And so that was definitely something that has taken me years to admit to myself, because I knew that 20 patients was enough, and I can do really good taking care of 20. Sometimes in the workplace, I'm ending up taking care of 40, and it's just overwhelming. It's overwhelming, and all my muscles would just tense up on me. But you know what? I got it done. I will stick around and I will get it done, because you're not going to point a finger at me and say, I can't do so and so and so. But you know what? I remember thinking to myself one day, the Lord put this thought in my head: you're not God. You cannot carry the weight of 20 people, 40 people, but I can. And he's got the whole world in his hands, you know. So that's definitely one thing I took away from it, that God is saying, let me show you what I can do if you just take your hands off of it. And, you know, I didn't work for 3 weeks. God is so wonderful. He's so awesome. I've made more money not working than I did working. It does. His math don't make no kind of sense. It makes no sense. And through the love of friends and family, the outpouring of love and friends and family, when God says, I'm going to open up a window, the windows of heaven, and just pour it out on you. Man, one of my friends said to me, you better sit down and let me love on you, because I'm doing the loving. I don't receive. I mean, I get it. You know, I receive by giving, but by just sitting there and doing nothing, and people just loving on you like they did, it said, God was saying to me, there's other people out there that can do the work too.
Mm-hmm.
It just can't be you. Not all the time. Yes, do what you can with the time that you have, but you can't take all that on by yourself.
Right.
Girl, I am just
Thank you.
yeah, that's awesome. This is awesome. And you know, it's so funny that Arlette started off saying, you know, I'm not a talker, you know. I can't, you know, my husband is the one because you know, I get nervous and the sister girl is preaching. Okay. So thank you. So Vanessa, take it away.
Man, thank you all so much for joining us this evening for this podcast, for sharing your story with us, and for being vulnerable with us and educating us this evening. Thank you so much for that. And as I started off saying earlier, one of the things about the Jeremiah family is that they are a very musical family, and they are going to share that blessing with us this evening. And they're going to take us out of the segment. But before that happens, as we always do, we like to leave our listeners with some words of wisdom, some words of encouragement until our next podcast. And so I will start it off, and then I'll ask maybe Georges and Lynn if you would also like to leave some words with the listening audience. Yvonne, you can wrap that up, and then Jeremiah family, if you don't mind, then you can take us out. So my words is something that was shared earlier in this podcast, and that is that we are our brother's keeper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We are our brother's keeper. And so, you know, I am asking everyone to please be safe. Mm-hmm. Wear masks, wear gloves, wash your hands, mm-hmm. right? Protect yourself and the other.
Yes. Yes.
For me, I would say, keep God first. Mm-hmm. Wear a mask. Mm-hmm. Keep God third. Wear a mask. Keep God fifth. And put that in rotation until you can't anymore. And make sure, as you love on God, you love on your neighbor.
Amen.
I just wanted to say, I wish I would have joined you guys sooner. This was so beautiful. I just want to say how refreshing it is to just see I call it a testimony because it is, mm-hmm. and how transparent you all have been. This was just so beautiful, and the amount of blessings that you're going to be putting out for many people, especially people of color who are fearful. You just gave out so much education, so much information. We reiterated so much about masks, but to hear a first word encounter of a personal experience, mm-hmm. I just can't thank you enough for that. So just thank you so much for letting God use you.
God bless. God bless. All final words. Isaiah 41:10. It says, "Don't be afraid, for I am with you. Don't be discouraged, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will hold you up with my victorious hand."
My final words are, sometimes what looks like an obstacle in your path is actually a gift meant to move you in a direction that's different. Okay? That's by Jane Lee Logan. I'll repeat it. Sometimes what looks like an obstacle in your path is actually a gift meant to move you in a different direction. Mm-hmm. COVID may have seemed like an obstacle. It scared you, Kendra. It may have scared Arlette or KJ. but it was a gift meant to move you in a different direction. And that's what we're going to take from this and from your experience, that God, you said God is teaching you to let him be the great physician that he is. Elliot said this is a blessing to be able to minister. When God gives you something, when God blesses you with an opportunity or a testimony, it is not for you to just sit on your laurels and use it for yourself. God blesses us so that we can bless others. So those are my final words. So the Jeremiahs we're gonna sit and be blessed with music.
The chorus of the song, it embodies what we believe and what we try to push as our thought and as our main thought here in the house. And the chorus says, it's talking about fear. It tells fear, never again will I love you. My heart, it refuses to be your home. No longer your prisoner. Today I remember, apart from you is where I belong. So I hope you're blessed by the song, Hello Fear. Let's talk to it.
Before you sit down.
bless you. Just tackle that fear. Let him know we will not control our lives.
You have been listening to the Access RUMERTIME Conversations podcast, where the time is always RUMERTIME, where we equip you to solve your problems one rumor at a time, where we educate you to transform your stories one rumor at a time, and where we empower you to become your own life coach one rumor at a time. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.